On the evening of May 12th, 2026, Southampton were 90 minutes from the Premier League. The semi-final was won, Wembley was booked, and the fans were celebrating. A manager who had taken over a relegation-threatened club in November had pulled off one of the most remarkable turnarounds in Championship history. They were 90 minutes from the Premier League, 90 minutes from a financial transformation worth somewhere between £140 million and £300 million. 4 days later, it was gone. Expelled from the playoffs, stripped of their Wembley place, Middlesbrough reinstated, Hull City promoted. Southampton left behind with a 4 point deduction hanging over next season and a reputational crisis that will take years to repair. And the reason it all collapsed: a member of their backroom staff, a phone, and a training ground fence. This is the story of how Southampton destroyed a Premier League future, and why the financial consequences go far deeper than anyone is talking about. To actually understand what Southampton destroyed, you need to understand what they'd just built. November 2nd, 2025. Southampton sack Will Still after 16 games and a win rate of 25%. The club are 21st in the Championship, 3 points from the relegation zone. The season looked dead. Into the building walks Tonda Eckert, 32 years old, German. Previously Southampton's under-21 coach. No top-level management experience. On paper, a catastrophic appointment. What followed was absolutely extraordinary. Eckert won 4 of his first 5 games as interim. The football completely changed. Southampton moved up the table so fast it was genuinely difficult to keep track. By December 5th, the club had made it permanent, signing Eckert on a contract until 2027. He said at the time, "We go all in. There's no other way." From 21st place in November to the Championship playoff final by May, Southampton accumulated 80 points in total under Eckert. That's not luck. That is a genuine managerial transformation, the kind of story that football fans love. The rebuild was real. The belief was real. The players fought for it, and the fans believed in it. That makes what happened next so much harder to process. Now, here's the thing that most coverage miss on this story. What Southampton did was not a one-off moment of madness. It was a pattern, repeated over 6 months, in multiple games, against multiple opponents. The first incident was against Oxford United in December 2025, just less than 2 months after Eckert took the job. A Southampton staff member was observed at Oxford training ground ahead of an upcoming Championship fixture. Southampton actually lost that game 2-1. The second incident, Ipswich Town, April 2026. Training observed ahead of a regular season Championship fixture. That one ended 2-2. And the third, the one that broke everything, Middlesbrough, May 7th, 2026, ahead of the first leg of the Championship playoff semi-final. Middlesbrough spotted a Southampton staff member at their Rockcliffe Park training ground. Middlesbrough staff members physically chased the individual where he fled to a local golf club, making an escape into a local town where he was then collected. They contacted the police. They then contacted the EFL. 3 incidents, 3 different opponents, 6 months of the same behaviour. And here's the crucial thing: Southampton admitted all 3. Their chief executive, Phil Parsons, released an official statement that said, and I am quoting directly from it, "What happened was wrong." There was no version of this story where Southampton claimed any innocence. They admitted it all. 3 separate times over half a season, including the most important fixture of their campaign. To understand why the EFL came down so hard on Southampton, we need to go back to January 2019. Leeds United were challenging for a promotion to the Premier League. Manager Marcelo Bielsa sent a member of staff to observe Derby County's training session ahead of an upcoming Championship fixture. Derby spotted him, contacted the police, and the fallout was enormous. What followed became one of the most extraordinary moments in football management history. Bielsa had a 70-minute press conference, and he openly admitted to not just spying on Derby, but to have sent his employees to observe the training sessions of every single one of his opponents that season. He was actually celebrated for his honesty. and Leeds were fined £200,000. And crucially, the EFL introduced a new rule. Clubs were now expressly forbidden from observing an opponent's training session within 72 hours of a scheduled match. Here's the most important detail in the entire story. When Bielsa's staff member stood outside Derby's training ground in 2019, that specific rule didn't exist. He broke the spirit of the regulations, the unwritten code, if you will. Leeds were punished under broader good faith provisions. Southampton broke a rule that exists specifically because of what Leeds did. Every single championship club knew that that rule existed. The EFL had written it, they'd published it, and they distributed it. Southampton chose to break it anyway. 3 times. The Commission's position was simple. If Leeds breaking the spirit of the rules, before the specific rule even existed, cost them £200,000, then what should breaking the actual rule 3 times, including in a playoff semi-final, cost them? The EFL went nuclear, and the reason why they went nuclear matters. Most people's reaction to Southampton's expulsion was, surely that's excessive. A fine, maybe a points deduction, but expulsion from the playoffs, taking away the result of the semi-final, reinstating a team that had been eliminated. Here's the reason why the EFL almost certainly felt that they had no choice. If the punishment for spying on opponents, including in a playoff semi-final, is merely just a financial penalty, then every club in the EFL starts doing a calculation. What is the fine likely to be? Is the competitive advantage worth more than the fine? If the answer is yes, then clubs will cheat, rationally and deliberately, because the expected benefit outweighs the expected cost. The EFL needed to make the punishment so catastrophic that the calculation never makes sense, not just for Southampton, but for every single club watching. The message had to be, if you cheat at this level, in this competition, the consequences will destroy your season. No appeal, no negotiation, gone. That's the deterrence, and it's exactly what the EFL delivered. Right, the money, because this is Sports Cash Files. The Championship Playoff Final has long been called the most valuable single game in world football. The reason is not the match itself. The reason is what winning it unlocks. According to Deloitte's analysis, winning promotion through the playoffs is worth between £140 million and £300 million across a 3 to 5 year period. That range depends on how long a club survives in the Premier League. But even the floor figure of £140 million represents a financial transformation that Championship clubs simply cannot replicate in any other way. Where does that money come from? Broadcasting distributions. Every Premier League club receives over £100 million in TV money alone, regardless of league position. Commercial growth. Sponsors pay more when you're a Premier League club. Player values increase. The ability to attract better signings improves. And if you're relegated, parachute payments cushion the fall for 3 more seasons. Southampton didn't just lose the playoff final. They lost years of financial acceleration. The compound effect of Premier League money. The sponsorships. The better players. The bigger crowds. The commercial deals. They don't just appear after one season. It builds, year on year. By destroying their Wembley place, Southampton potentially set the club back by half a decade financially. Now, here's where it gets really interesting, because the financial damage does not stop at the lost promotion money. It goes way deeper than that. The players. In football, promotion bonuses are standard. Many Championship players sign contracts with clauses that trigger significant pay rises upon reaching the Premier League. Automatic salary uplifts. One-off promotion bonuses. Players who fought for 6 months under Eckert, who believed in the project and ran themselves into the ground, may have had financial incentives tied to reaching the top flight. Those clauses did not trigger. Those bonuses will not be paid. Players who were not involved in the spying, who knew nothing about it, they may have financially suffered because of actions taken by others inside the club. And that raises uncomfortable questions. Could disputes emerge? We're not saying anyone's taking legal action, but the question is legitimate. And legal uncertainty is expensive, even if nothing materialises. The dressing room. Think about what those players woke up to on that Wednesday morning. Months of work, a season that looked dead in November, a manager they believed in, a run to Wembley, and then gone. Not because they weren't good enough, because of a decision made above them that they had no control over. How do players process that? How does a dressing room function when the trust between the players and the club has been fundamentally damaged? The internal fallout from a scandal like this is rarely visible from the outside, but it is real, and it affects next season before it's even started. The fans. Football clubs monetize on belief. Season tickets, merchandise, matchday spending. The commercial ecosystem of a football club depends entirely on supporters wanting to be a part of it. And right now, Southampton's fan base is furious. They're not just disappointed, they're furious. They watched their club cheat 3 times and then watch the consequences unfold in real time. Season ticket renewal conversations will happen under a cloud of anger and distrust that did not exist 6 months ago. The sponsors. Brands pay for positive association. They want their name connected to success, integrity, and community. Integrity scandals create reputational risk. Future sponsorship negotiations happen under commercial uncertainty. Partners become cautious. Southampton's negotiating position with commercial partners has drastically weakened. Not because the business has fundamentally changed, but because the story around the club has. And the transfer market. As we know, agents talk. Players have options. When a footballer's representatives sit down this summer to consider championship clubs, Southampton's name now carries baggage that it did not before. That affects recruitment. That affects next season's squad quality. That affects the chances of promotion, which affects the finances. The ripple effects compound. Here is the question that should haunt everybody at Southampton. And what did they actually gain? The Oxford game they spied for, they lost. The Ipswich game they spied for, they drew. The Middlesbrough semi-final that they spied for, we all know what happened. 3 acts of cheating, no competitive gain. They risked access to a financial future worth hundreds of millions of pounds for results that gave them nothing. The final irony, Hull City won the playoff final, promoted to the Premier League after finishing 6th in the Championship, taking the place that Southampton had worked all season to earn, because Southampton simply couldn't help themselves. Southampton didn't lose promotion because they weren't good enough. Under Thunder Eckert, they were clearly good enough. Over 60 points from November to May, a playoff semi-final, and a fan base that was believing again. They lost it because they broke the one thing that modern sport cannot function without: trust. Not just sporting trust, fan trust, commercial trust, internal trust, institutional trust. Modern football clubs are not just sports teams, they're brands, media companies, commercial platforms. Their value is not just what happens on the pitch, it's in the credibility that supporters, sponsors, and players and partners place in them. Southampton damaged all of that simultaneously, for a marginal competitive advantage that gave them absolutely nothing in return. The EFL's message was clear, and it was delivered in the most financially devastating way possible. Integrity isn't optional. It never was. Was the punishment right or too harsh? Drop your comment below. And if this one made you think differently about football, a like genuinely helps the channel reach more screens. Subscribe to Sports Cash Files. Every week we dig into the financial stories behind the biggest moments in sport. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.